So today we are chatting with Ophelia. She is another dungeon master, and this is our third video in the series here during our summer reading program, Tales and Tales. Ophelia, thank you for being with us today. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I just want to say to anybody that is watching this, Ophelia was the inspiration behind this whole Dungeon Master series. She and I had a conversation a long time ago about one of the campaigns she was running, and I was just totally blown away by the creativity and the cool elements that she was able to incorporate. So this is a special chat for me. So thank you. You ready to get started with the interview?
Yeah, I'm ready for anything.
All right. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
You already sent me.
Oh, what was that?
I said as long as it's one of the 10 questions you already sent me.
Of course, yeah. We don't go off script too much here.
Okay. So about me, well, I am just about to turn 30. I am from upstate New York, which probably most people are watching this. And I got into D&D by watching somebody on YouTube who makes parody videos. They happened to start a D&D campaign, so I already knew the people who were playing the characters. So I started watching them, and all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I could do that. I can make voices. And then that's what led me into D&D.
Awesome. So how long have you been DMing?
I've been DMing for 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, going on 6 soon. And a funny story about that is I literally, before I was even a player, I DM'd. I decided I wanted to DM more than be a player. And so I really haven't been a player. I've been a player for maybe like 6 sessions at most.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I've had over hundreds of sessions as a DM, so it's crazy. But so my first experience with the D&D that I was playing, I set up this little map for this town, and I had a dungeon and a town ready, and I really didn't have that much plot. It was my first time. I was trying to convince people that I've DM'd before, or at least knew D&D, but I barely knew the mechanics. I barely knew how the classes worked. And I was playing, and I was, describing where the people were, and one guy could tell I was, being a little slow. So he decided to create a scene himself. He ran into this shop, went up to this old guy, and started saying, hey, where's my stuff? And I was like totally unprepared for this, because obviously he was trying to just build context and hoping I'd play off of it. But I was not ready. This was all online too. So I ended up disconnecting and messaging them an hour later saying sorry. Internet issues. And then that was my first experience with D&D. And I haven't had anything that awkward since. So.
That's probably a good thing. Start there and work your way up.
Yeah. No, I just completely let the ball drop. I should have just been honest and said, hey, I'm not prepared. I tried and failed. But, my next campaign, I was prepared for that. And then I made I had 2 going at once after that. And they both took off pretty well. And then I ended up moving. I was living in Seattle at the time. I moved back to New York. And I wasn't able to play for a bit because a lot of my life was changing. I was about to have a little kid. And that's when I had Sarah Bell, my daughter.
Well, I've noticed with the other chats that we've had with Dungeon Masters that is a big theme, is that there's definitely a bit of a learning curve when you start off.
Yeah.
So it sounds like a typical story. So I know that you play online a lot. Do you prefer playing D&D online or in person?
I like them both equally for completely different reasons. I will say I did have an online group with family. An in-person group with family, and it was much more chill. There's a lot more downtime because it was hard to keep people's attention. So there's a lot more like intermingling, which is frustrating as a DM. But it's a looser environment. But trying to get them to switch to playing online didn't work. Because I ended up moving and I wanted to keep the campaign going, but there was no way because they just did not have the attention span. While all of the campaigns I ran online have been a lot more serious because I had players who like really wanted to play.
I can see that.
I also really do prefer using Roll20 or other online tools because you can pre-build everything in there. There's no handwriting. I have really bad handwriting. So you just get everything set up. You click a button and all the character sheets pull up. I have all of my manuals online too. So like I would have to have a laptop. I couldn't just have a book in the DM screen. So I don't know if I'll get another chance to play in person for a bit, but I'm loving what I'm doing online. So
neat. And that is the second time I've heard about that Roll20 site, actually, since we started this. I am learning so much about D&D. It's fantastic. So do you have a preference between running a homebrew campaign or a module? Have you ran modules before?
I have looked at running a module. I ran a very short module once that was just like a one-shot. And it takes away a lot of the creativity for me. It's great for new people because everything's there. You can look up the information. You have names. Names are the hardest thing of D&D. Like having names ready for people. Don't let anyone tell you that the math's hard or calculations. It's the names. If you're DMing and someone's like, "Oh, who's that guy? He's freaking Bob Gillis," like he's just gonna pull a name out of nowhere. So the modules help with stuff like that, but then you kind of feel confined to that world, and like whoever's your big bad, you have to act the way that they're written in the book to get to the scene that it wants you to get to. While I much prefer having completely open-ended. And this is where I'm going to get into my writing style. So I write very weirdly. So if you think of A through Z, Z is the end of the campaign, level 20. There's 20 levels in D&D. I write in 4 arcs, and I kind of base them off level 1 through 5, level 5 through 10, level 11 through 15, level 16 through 20. And the first thing I write isn't A, it's F. I write the end of the first arc. That is my first thing that I think of. I think of the world setting and stuff, but I write F as my first plot point. Then I go back and I write A and B. And then I jump back and I write E. Right before F, I write E. And then the middle kind of works itself out. I never really write the middle. I let the players decide that. But I know that no matter what they do, I'm going to get them to F, because that's the main point of level 1 through 5. That's going to open them up to the world. I think about it in a video game sense where, it's going to be an open world, but I want them to experience this town first. So, I kind of cap things off from them until they get into this moment, which, it levels them up so that it's not as dangerous to go out to the rest of the world. It's like a really good way to control the first bit without making it look super controlled.
Neat. It sounds like there's a lot of thought that goes into this.
Oh yeah. Oh, there's a lot of planning. There's a lot of rewriting. There's a lot of improv. Yeah, it's quite the experience.
So on a normal day, how long do you spend preparing for a single session?
So I'll give you the normal day, but I'll give you the span. There's some sessions that I've spent 10 hours plus for just the session, and there's some sessions that I've spent 20 minutes, and I just dived in because I was running late, and then those end up being the more fun sessions because it's all off the top of my head. But the ones that, I put a lot of planning in end up being really dramatic and lasting moments. But I would say typically I like to have at least 2 to 3 hours set aside before the campaign to plan.
Neat. And I
spend about an hour of that time uploading things into Roll20, and I spend the other hour or 2 thinking of what I want to do.
Okay. This is a little bit off script, but I'm curious, how long, when you first start a campaign, how long do you spend on the development process and writing, your plot points and different arcs and things?
I would say that I at minimum, it would be 6 hours
Wow. All right.
of intense work, like of sitting down focusing. But it happens that 6 hours of like physical writing and stuff happens in the course of about 2 weeks, and I'm always thinking about what the next thing is going to be.
Okay.
You know, like okay, I need to have a character for this. I need to have, you know, you have nations, so you have to know like what the point of the nation is. Like, is it a monarchy? Is it you know, a republic? I even made a confederacy once. Like, you know, like they broke away from where they used to be. It was a what's it called? Commonwealth. It was like kind of a Commonwealth area. It was a bunch of clans, and I had one clan break away, and I called it Heartland. And you know, like they were too sick of the boring, easy life, and they just wanted to be more dramatic. Yeah. So things like that just came to me. I was like, wouldn't it be funny if? And then you write it. But then there's other things where I'm just looking at this one, because I make the map first. Before I do anything, I find a map I like. So I'm looking at this one big island I can't decide if it's a continent or an island yet, and I keep looking at it, and it's like this has to be something. So I either just throw some syllables together. I called it what was it? Oh, I can pull it up real fast. I haven't. It's a Z name. And I kept running things, and eventually I made a bunch of dragonborns that are like praying to this one dragon as like the true god, but he's obviously he's a dragon, so he's not like actually divine, and he's just manipulating all of these dragonborns to like do his bidding, but they all think like he's going to bring dragons to the rest of the world. It's like this big cult thing.
All right, so this leads me to my next question. Where your campaigns are concerned, how strict are you with your rules?
So for rules are very fickle. It depends on the kind of campaign you play. I'm pretty strict when it comes to character building for like the classes. I really want people to, use books that I already know, so I can like say you can't do that, or that is something that is in the realm of possibilities for your character. But there's a lot of things that I kind of rewrite myself. Like one of the controversial things is rolling nat 1s on ability checks, because technically a nat 1 or a nat 20 only means something special in combat, but if you get a nat 20 or a nat 1 on an ability check, it's just the number that matters. It doesn't matter if it was a 1 or a 20 on the dice. So I like to make nat 1s very hysterically comedic, and like if somebody rolls a nat 1 on an investigation check, I usually have them trip and get their foot stuck into something because they were like trying to look at something too hard, they forgot where they were. And then I there's different types of damage, but I always make up a damage type when it's a nat 1 related. Oh, you just took on 2 toe damage, and like now you're stuck. And stuff like that's pretty funny. For me at least. My players seem to enjoy it as well. But there's so many different rules that it's tough. Like spells, I'm very strict. I do whatever the spell says. I never deviate. Sometimes there'll be like a gray area that you kind of have to fill in yourself. But like the spell does what the spell does. I'm not going to change that. But when it comes to like, if somebody's like, I really want to try to do this, and they want to try to, like, they see a glass bottle on the ground in combat, and they want to say, I have alcohol, can I make a Molotov? I'll be like, yes. Let me figure out how many turns it's going to take and what rolls you have to do, but yes, hold on one moment. if they don't have anything to ignite it, obviously, I'm going to say, well, you don't have anything that can ignite it, so you're kind of stuck, But, if they say, well, can I have some flint, can I spend a turn trying to, I was like, okay, you'll do one turn that, and then the next turn you'll throw it. But if you get hit when you're holding it, then it'll explode on you. So I add like other layers to it as we make it up to make it seem more realistic.
Neat. That's really kind of cool. So how often do you need to adapt your strategy mid-campaign? Like, do you find that players try to veer away from the storyline that you've written?
Yes. There's one time I wrote this really cool dungeon that had some relevant information. I had this character, his name was like William Pottis or something silly, and he just rhymed. He was like, I don't know what I would do if it wasn't for you. Thank you so much for saving me. I can't wait to be free. And like everything he said was rhymes. Like I wrote down this huge thing, and he gave this huge poem about this dungeon that used to be run by white dragons, but they abandoned it, and that there's this really cool treasure in it. And like I'm sitting there doing his voice and like going over and over and over, like practicing the poem, and so I can do it smoothly. And they never even went to it. I was so pissed. I mean, I really wasn't. It was just funny. But
right.
But in general, it's you just go with the flow. You have to be able to make NPCs on the spot. You have to be able to say, okay, I need a guy who's going to do this, who's going to have this quirk, and then this way you have a little bit of filler while they explore and do whatever they're going to do, and then eventually they'll end up back in it. If they really want to play the campaign, they'll end up back where they need to go. And if they don't, the next session, you take a 10-minute pause, write something new, give it to them. And then next session, you're like, okay, well, we're going here now. And then it might be a big loop until we get back to where I wanted them to. Or we just might ditch it if it's a small area,
Okay. So what do you think your favorite part of DMing is?
The voices.
The voices? Cool.
Yeah. I have a lot of fun just being different people. It's just I've always been. I used to work undercover as like catching shoplifters, and I just like that kind of mindset. Like I get to go away and let somebody be around for a bit. So one of my favorite voices was this old guy named Fable, and he was just a really, really old elf who brought peace. But he had this really calm old voice. Hello and welcome to the meeting. Today I want to pass off the torch to my son. And, and like, so, like, I just get invigorated, by that. Like, I always like to throw random dwarves in because I can always go to a dwarf voice. Like, I just do, like, a really bad Scottish. Like, hello, traveler. Can I help you? What do you need?
That's fantastic.
And, the best voice, though, is the pompous, like, villain. Oh, you think you have the upper hand on me? There's absolutely no way. I'm going to beat you to the ground. And stuff like that.
Cool. So what do you find the most frustrating about being a DM?
The most frustrating? I would have to say the one player that doesn't want to play with what everybody wants to do. Again, I don't care if people have different views. Obviously, like, the barbarian's going to be a lot different than the wizard. Like, but that's cool. That's a diverse table. But there's sometimes a player who just doesn't want to do what everyone is doing, and they throw a huge fit. It's like, well, my character just won't do that. And then they try to go off and do their own thing. And now I'm running 2 campaigns at once, like, okay, this guy is going here, flashback to everyone else, and then, you know, the people are spending half their time waiting for me to talk to this one guy because he just didn't want to participate. And, you know, that's frustrating. And, you know, that's a conversation that I have off the table. I will entertain it for as long as I can, but then, you know, like either we'll take a break or, you know, I'll say, you know, at the end of the session, I'll say, hey man, you know, you're really taking away from the other people. And as many conflicts as you can solve off the table is the best way to do it. You just put it on pause at the table and play along, and then talk about it off so you don't ruin the game. I'll tell you my favorite thing I've ever done to kill an awkward situation. I had this was in person too. I had this one guy who decided he just wanted to be super explorative with NPCs, and he really wanted to flirt, and he wanted to go further than I wanted to DM, especially at a table with, you know, like people I know. Like, it's like, no, this is not a thing that's going to happen. And so he just made a comment to a shop clerk. The shop clerk was funny. She was this lizard folk, and she was like, I'm totally not enthused by my job. Like, welcome to Leatherworks, where we work on your leather. What can I do to help you? Like, that kind of thing. And like, cause he rolled a dice to see, he rolled a check to see who the most attractive person he could find, and he rolled a nat one. So I said, oh, she's standing out here right now. I didn't know what he was gonna do. So anyways, and then he asked her something really vulgar, and she immediately contacts in game. She contacts guards. The guards come. I say, okay, now you need to roll me a dexterity check because they're putting you in manacles. So he fails his dexterity check, and I was like, okay, well, you're now the guards now have you in custody, and so the rest of the party went to an inn, and he was escorted with them by the guards, and then he said something else. I said, okay, now you need to roll me a constitution check because they're shoving a potion down your throat. And he failed it. I was like, oh, well, unfortunately, you're now unconscious. And then, boom, I solved the issue. You know, everyone who was uncomfortable now didn't have to listen to him. We didn't break character. I never broke the game. That might not always be a thing. You might just have to say, hey, man, that's not cool. Do you want to try again? Like, there's many different ways to deal with frustrating events like that.
That's a really smooth way to do it, though. Just work it right into the in-game thing.
Yes.
Good on your feet. Nice. So, in your years of DMing, have there been any skills that you really attribute dungeon mastering to helping you develop?
I would say just in general, the nervousness of speaking in front of people. Because once somebody hears you do a really bad English accent, you know, there's not much worse. There's nothing more embarrassing. I sang in Giant once. Yeah, I sang as a giant in a language I wrote for giants.
That is commitment.
Like, you know, like how often can you yell Galoog in front of somebody and not be embarrassed? You know, so I really, you can probably hear the rain. It just really helped with public speaking.
Cool.
The numbers, you know, it's not complicated math. It's just rolling dice. I guess probability might become a new understanding for people who play D&D and don't think about it. And then obviously character building and creation, like story writing, will obviously be a main point. But the biggest thing that I think any DM can take away is that public speaking. You know, like you just walk away like so much more confident to talk to people.
Neat. All right, so I'm looking forward to this question. Can you give us an example of one of your favorite moments from a previous campaign?
Yeah, I will will tell you that I was messaging my players saying, "Hey, I have an interview and I gotta have a really good, funny thing that happened. I really want to end with a bang." And here's this. There's so many things that happened, but here's one of the main things. I'm gonna say this one. I'm gonna say the one I remember the most personally, and then I'm gonna say the most shocking one. So
okay,
get through these.
a three-parter. I like it.
Yeah. So the first one, it was the brand new session. I worked on a song for it too. So basically, they were walking into this town where they were just about to start this festival where what was it? Colt Heron and Damascue were meeting up, So this one nation and this other nation get together, and it's like this unity thing that they do for 3 days. It's a 3-day festival where they just celebrate being in existence with each other. And from Damascue, it was like rat folk, like tall, like Final Fantasy IX-esque rat folk for anyone that knows what I'm talking about, as opposed to like literal like super rat shaped. And then it was Dragonborns and Poltarian. So I wrote this piece that had brass being played by the dragons and woodwinds being played by the rat folk. And it would start off with just the brass and percussion, and then it would go over to the woodwinds and strings, and then it went back and forth, and then they both played together. It was like both of them uniting into the same song and into the same area, because I like kind of had it choreographed. And so basically, what happened was they were immediately thrown into it. They were all sitting in there. And they came out because they heard this crazy noise. They were in a tavern. They came out and heard this crazy noise. And all of a sudden, this festival started happening. And the person in the front of the festival with, like, a baton kept saying, "Hey, you, go over here." And they all had to, like, participate in all this while it was happening. I had the music looping in the background while I did it. And so we had a druid. And they're, like, in this, like, little parade thing, they had weird animals. So I said, "Here, roll a check to see if you can like look like those animals and fit in." And then there was a rogue. I was like, "Okay, you roll a dexterity check to see if you can juggle back and forth with this guy." And like this is all happening while the music was happening. Like all of a sudden they were improv inside the festival. And I had a specific thing planned out for everybody. But the funniest thing is after that, there was one information. Like, I give everybody a little bit of backstory of why they're in this area. And there's this one guy named Penn the Teller, and he was a wizard, if you couldn't tell. And he wanted to go to this place because he knew that the Dragonborns had this really powerful sorceress school. So he went to, at the end of the ceremony, he talked to the guy who's, like, making all these announcements. Like, "Hey, can I show you my stuff? I want to get to your sorcerer school." Meanwhile, I'm thinking, like, there's no way this guy is going to pay attention to you because, he's, like, trying to host a festival. And you're just a random person. But he was, like, and this guy he was, like, a very pompous character. He was, like, an ambassador. And he's like, "Well, I guess I'll look at what you're going to show me." And he puts on, Penn rolls a nat 20 on his performance check. So I was like, "Oh, well, yeah, okay, he notices what you're doing." And then he's like, I want to try to convince him that I can join his sorcerer school. I was like, still, that's not something he would do. Okay, roll me a persuasion check. Rolls another nat 20. And I was like, "Oh my God." And I was like, okay, this guy's now your best friend, and he's going to give you a tour of, like, the place. Like, he literally earned it with 2 nat 20s in a row. It was crazy. after all this crazy press. It was like the best opening with the funniest like ending to it, like for the first half of the campaign.
Nice.
My favorite moment that I ever had, and this was before I started playing with the group I'm currently playing with. This was my Seattle group that I was with for about a year and a half. They decided that they wanted to go see this dragon that they think could help them with this issue. They said, if we can get the dragons to notice this little war that's going on, because what was happening was in the two nations, they were resisting, they were banning all use of magic. So that needed to be stopped, and they figured if I can team up with someone powerful who understood the nature of magic and why it's needed, it would help. So they go talk to the brass, was it brass or copper? I can't remember which one, but one of the types of dragons are just known for being tricksters and like to laugh all the time. And so in order to talk to the ancient, they made them like go through these 3 trials with this dragon that was about to come of age. And one of them was oil vesseling. Another one was like some kind of like tug of war thing where they all had to tug versus the dragon. And the last one was like this so it was like rock, paper, scissors, but it was with elements and it was a little more complicated. And it was just so fun because they were like, oh no, the other one was a drinking contest against the dragon. They had to outdrink the dragon. Yeah, it was just hilarious. Like everyone was just having a freaking ball. Like the players were having fun. I was having fun. It was like it was so serious up until that point. That was the first time like the characters got to like just like laugh at each other. And it was just such a good moment.
Nice.
And the most memorable to me, it's not the best. It was when it was one of those traitor player moments. Basically, what happened was, the group just kind of hijacked an airship, and they were flying back, trying to decide how they were going to handle the queen of the nation that like put them on this task, and explain to them why they ended up hijacking it. And one player just didn't agree with what everyone else's choice was. The last 2 sessions were making up for that player's mistakes. And the player, they end up talking to the queen and meeting them mid-air and having this like huge like conversation of like, what are you doing in my airship? And the wizard, who also had very good charisma, was just about to convince the queen it was the only way to survive. But they were still able to accomplish her goal. And then this player decides to walk onto her ship. And I was like, okay, that's the queen will not forgive that. That's just hard built into her character. She's not going to accept somebody passing into her. So the final part of the arc started early. She had the She had the mechanical dragon was like the thing I wrote first. Like that was the big event. So she had that in her airship and she let it go. And they started this early and they were strong enough to beat it. I wrote it for that current level that they were at. But what happened was, since the guy kind of like walked onto the ship, he died immediately. So there was now 3 players instead of 4. And they could have still beat the encounter, but they just kept making bad rolls. Some guy rolled a nat 1 and got kicked in the shin and fell unconscious. Another guy would cast a fly and got knocked out of the air by a dragon because he lost concentration on the spell. And so he took a lot of fall damage, And, it ended up being a TPK, which is a total, I don't even know what it stands for, but it's total party knockout.
Okay.
It knocks out basically the whole party was killed.
Gotcha.
End of game. Like this session is now over. Like this campaign is now over. Everyone's dead. And we ended up writing a new campaign, but it just sucked that somebody didn't want to play so much that they ruined the whole campaign for them. And then he said after, I'm not really feeling this group anymore. I was like, you should have said that before it started the session, instead of like trying to go out with a bang and bring everyone down. So we still make jokes about that event.
So any last thoughts for anybody out there that's looking maybe to get into D&D or is, more interested in becoming a dungeon master? Any advice that you'd like to share with the world?
Just do it. Get the player's handbook and get the monster manual. Don't even look at the DM's guide. Get the player's handbook so you know how the game works, and get a monster manual so you have monsters that you can just have ready to go, and you're done. You can get them for, you can find bits and pieces of them online for free. Always support the official material if you can from Wizards of the Coast. But yeah, study on those things, and that's it. Just either find a module that you like or make up a world. Get a small map, do something small. Say, okay, I just want to do something that's going to last 5 sessions. You don't have to go for it level 1 to 20. You can do like a level 6 to 8 adventure. They start off at level 6. There's an event that gets them to level 7, and then they end up beating this thing at level 8. Like, start off small. Don't try to take on the whole world. Don't try to write like a deity system and a map and a whole, like, a bunch of different nations. Write one nation, pick a couple of gods that maybe are pre-written, or don't even include it in your campaign, and just have like okay, this is the dungeon they're gonna do, this is the town that they're gonna interact with. I find murder mysteries are really easy for a first campaign, because they get the roleplay experience, and plus you can have graveyards or things where you can have your encounters and your dungeon crawling.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for talking with us today about this. I know that I've learned a lot about DMing so far. We've got one more chat coming up in August. I just really appreciate you taking the time out of your day and sharing your experiences with the library here.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. I'm glad I got to show off the glory of being a DM.